Hello, if you've been here before, welcome back. If not, hi. My name is David. I make videos talking about media that I want to talk about. This is my monthly reading wrap-up of the month of August. This is the review of all the books that I read in August. In this month, I read 12 books, one of them being an audiobook that was stretched over almost 2 months, but the rest of them, all I read in the month of August. The summer months are a little easier to read more books because I get to read these books at work, and it's slow season right now. So there's some books that would have taken me a little bit longer if I had more things to do at work, but it was pretty slow this past few months, which was sad. But at least I got to read a lot of books, and so let's talk about it. Also in the description, I will have links to my Goodreads, which is where I talk about some of the books. Well, you'll see the books that I read on Goodreads, as well as my book Twitter and my Tumblr as well. Sometimes I post about things there. Mostly I post about the Magnus Archives on my Tumblr, but yeah, I'll have links there in the description for you to follow if you so desire. Friend me on Goodreads and follow me on book Twitter if you so desire. Today I'm showcasing two of my plushies. We have Glus. We got him for our we got him for our 2-year anniversary at the Icon Park Aquarium in Orlando, because we live in Orlando, and he's named after the horrifying slug monster in Del Toro Quest. And this is Peppermint Pig. He is a plushie from Dimension 20's A Crown of Candy, which was my favorite Dimension 20 TTRPG show. And yeah, he's just a licensed plushie. I really like him a lot. So let's get into it. So in order from the earliest of August to currently, the first book that I read that I finished was Babel by R.F. Kuang. So I started off August really good. This is a 5 out of 5 for me. It is definitely worth the hype. This is my first R.F. Kuang book. I am definitely going to read Poppy War at some time and maybe get my hands on Calabasas at some point in the future. But I definitely knew Babel, standalone fiction that I wanted to read from R.F. Kuang. I've already read an anthology that she edited, and I really liked her taste there. So I was like, I want to read more of R.F. Kuang. And yeah, this story had amazing prose. It has amazing characters, definitely worth the hype as to how much people talk about it. It's about a young orphaned Chinese man who gets taken in by a professor at the Oxford University in the UK, and he's taught how to do language, how to translate, and they use these translations to help in their magic system, which is also pretty complicated, but really fun. And I really liked it how it kept going. And it felt had a lot of righteous anger about colonialism and the effects it has on people and on the world in general. And it was a great critique on British colonialism as well. And I was really happy with how it went, even though it ended. It was definitely a sad ending that I was very happy with. Does that make sense? Around the same time that I got this copy of Babel, Target was having a buy 2 get 1 50% off sale for books, movies, and albums. And I was like, oh yeah, this sounds fun. And then there were individual books that were on sale for like 20 or 30%. And so I checked with the cashier and they said it did stack. So I did get 3 books that I read in succession from Target. And so the first one that I got was My Friends by Fredrik Backman. This is about a young orphan girl who uses a painting that she discovers to help her survive being an orphan, and eventually meets the artist of this story, of the book, and learns the story of the painting and his past. And we also see his past with his friends in his childhood. And so it sort of straddles the storylines of the current day with the orphan girl and the friend, and then the artist and his friends when they're like 13, 14, or 15 years old in their childhood. And so it flipped back and forth in ways that were very enticing and interesting. And so it did a really good job balancing both storylines. This is my first Backman book. I've seen a lot of people talk about Backman as a great author. I believe this book was first published in Swedish and then translated to English. And I thought, so this is a 3.5 out of 5 for me. Very, very emotional. It definitely did a really good job at pulling at my heartstrings and making me feel things. And there were some points where I almost cried during this book, which is very hard for me to do. But there were some prose that felt very over exaggerated. And I felt it matched with the characters, but I just did not personally like how much it over exaggerated within the book itself. And I wouldn't say there was like a twist, but there was definitely something that it was leading up towards that I was looking forward to, and then it turned out to be something else, and it felt sort of anticlimactic without giving too much spoilers. And so overall, I had very conflicting feelings about this book, but it did a very good job at making me feel many different emotions, most all of them very positive in terms of very sad, happy, excited, worried, but it all made sense with the story, and it made me feel very engaged in the story. And so I was really happy with that. The second book in the Target haul that I got, I guess, is Lucy Foley, the Midnight Feast. Midnight Feast, I did not know what to expect coming into the story, except I knew that it was a thriller. This is my first Lucy Foley as well. Didn't know exactly what to think about it coming in, and was very surprised also that it became a cult story. I did, from the description is very misleading. I did not expect it to be about a cult in this hotel. So it's about a hotel that just opens up in this semi-rural area in, I believe, southern UK. And the owner of the hotel used to live there when she was younger, and secrets start bubbling up around her and other characters around her as well. And yeah, I thought it was very exhilarating. It was very fun. It moved pretty quickly, and I much, much preferred the latter half than the first half, especially because in the first half, it suffered from, there was only a few characters, and then all of a sudden, every once in a while, a different side character was introduced, and we have to remember who they are. And also, the central characters, they would have like secrets that they would mention from like asides of like, oh yeah, and the secret that I kept or whatever. And I felt like that was very manipulative in terms of like, oh my god, I guess we have to find out what secret this is. But I didn't quite enjoy that. But overall, it was a fine ride. It was a 3.5 out of 5 for me. Very fun thriller. I'm reading more and more thrillers. I'm very happy with the thrillers that I've read so far. This one's a fine one. I do think I will read more Lucy Foley, but I'm not going to be scrambling to do so. Does that make sense? The last Target haul book that I got and finished in the month of August is The Girls of Good Fortune by Kristina McMorris. This is about a young woman, Chinese woman set in the 1880s, who gets pregnant by the son of the mayor that she cleans houses for, and has to leave and survive on her own. And it also talks about being shanghaied and the tunnels in Oregon, the subterranean labyrinth of Portland's notorious Shanghai tunnels, that I did not know was a thing. This book helped teach a lot of the past that I didn't really know about, especially in the 1880s. It covered things about racism against Chinese people, the hypocrisy of labor laws, and the hypocrisy of white people at that time. And this book had a crazy, crazy plot that almost felt unrealistic. It's not a real story. It's based off of real events, apparently, and it mixes real stuff with fiction stuff, and I think it did a really good mix of that. I can't really tell which was fiction, which is nonfiction, but it was a crazy plot anyways, and that was really fun. The main character, Celia, she is very, very well written, and also incredibly naive in ways that felt right to her and to the world, but to me because she thinks that she's in the present. She's in 1880s. It's the present time for her. It is the height of everything, right? And she expects things to be a certain way because it is the present. But me in 2025, seeing how things are in 1880, I'm like, hey girl, why are we expecting there to be justice and for things to be right at this time? But she doesn't know that, obviously, because she thinks that she's in the current present, which is the most, I don't want to say futuristic, but like it is the most advanced the world has gotten so far. And so her naivety, which felt annoying at times, made a lot of sense and honestly did help sustain her want and her push and her drive. And then we see as she grows older what she does with that drive. That feels very nice to see. And yeah, this was a 4 out of 5 for me. I was really happy with the crazy plot and Celia's character, how she was written, and what she did. Very fun. The next book I read was The Girl Who Could Fly by Victoria Forrester. So when I was in, I believe, 4th grade, we in Florida have this thing called Sunshine State Books. And it might be a different sort of name in different states. I'm not fully sure. The Sunshine State Books are a list collection of different books that were published in that year or a few years previous of the year that the list comes out, of the best middle grade and elementary grade books for children to read. And so in 4th grade, I had a bunch of those books that I had to read, and some of them stuck with me. And one of this was The Girl Who Could Fly. And it's about Piper McCloud, who is a girl who can fly. And government agents come and take her away to a school so that she can learn about her flying. But then she learns that it's not all that they're saying. And it's a very, very fun story. I read it in one night. I will say 12 books in 1 month, that's a lot. But also the next 3 books that I'm talking about, this one and the next 2 books that I'm going to talk about, I read in one day each because they are children's books. And this is a book that I reread. It's a children's book that I could read in one day. It's slow season, and so it's a little bit like these 3 books I read in 3 days. This is a really fun middle grade book. This will be a book that I pass down to my sister, who is the age that I think should read this book. Actually, I think she's a little older for this book. I'm still going to send it to her. Tell her, hey, read it. Tell me what you think about it. Because this book, when I was younger, when I read it, really affected me, really changed me. And reading it now again, I can see why. There's some very, very intense moments. And there's also some really interesting, nice moments that help you learn about the world and about yourself. And so I was really happy to be able to reread this book. I do have it's a series. It's a series that I found out. I did not know that it was a series. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll get the second book from the library. So that's on my list of books to read. And yeah, I was really happy to reread this children's story. So it's a 4 out of 5 from me. The next book I read was Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. If you've been keeping up with me, you know that I've been rereading the Hunger Games series. This is the second book of the Hunger Games series. We know it, we love it. I just wanted to revisit it since the Sunrise of the Reaping book came out earlier this year. So I've been rereading this series. 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. This was a really, really fun sequel book to the Hunger Games. It's well paced. It's never boring. Each of the Hunger Games books are structured in 3 acts. I was really surprised that this book, the 3rd act, is just the quarter quell compared to the Hunger Games, the first book. Hunger Games started in the middle of the 2nd act, and in Sunrise on the Reaping, the Hunger Games started in the middle of the 2nd act as well. But the quarter quell takes place only within the last third of this book, and still feels like a lot, right? And you would expect that with the small amount of time that the book has to talk about the quarter quell, to show it lacks in stuff. And I will say it does feel smaller, but it makes sense because of how fast the game goes. Katniss also has a certain lack of knowledge, which is a little fun with the hindsight of knowing what's happening in the future in the movies and stuff like that. But in the book by itself is also still very, she doesn't know what's happening because people don't want her to know what's happening. And that's frustrating, but also makes a lot of sense and really does establish how she is as a character very, very well. Well, you're getting Cask of Amontillado. The next book is The Sea of Monsters by Riordan. So I have been rereading this Hunger Games series and the Percy Jackson series congruent, no, what's the term? At the same time. I've been rereading these series at the same time. Sea of Monsters, sequel, second book of Percy Jackson, 4 out of 5. Fine, serviceable. Percy Jackson holds up, but not as well as the Hunger Games does to me as an adult. But I really like how the friendship between Percy, Annabeth, and Grover are written in these books, because I feel like some children's stories, some stories in general, have a tendency to make the boy-girl relationships weird in a way, but here it feels very natural and they feel like friends, Percy and Annabeth. The other day I realized, oh yeah, someone else said it, and I was like, oh yeah, they're right. This is a slow burn, quote unquote, romance between Percy and Annabeth, but they're still children. Also, I do like how each book is a year after, so you can feel the characters growing along with you. And it was a great sequel. Obviously, we have the search for the fleece, the golden fleece. And I remember reading this book for the first time a long while ago. Rereading it, the quest itself is fine. It's quick. There's not much there. And I feel like it uses a lot of blank space between things for kids to fill in their own imagination. I think it's a really smart writing there. As an adult, it feels pretty, not bare bones, but definitely like we could have a little bit more. But for the story, for what it wants to do, really serviceable sequel. And as we go forward, the next few books of Percy Jackson I have less memory of, and so those I'll be more excited to read than. I mean, I remember watching the movie, the really bad movie for Sea of Monsters, and so I could kind of glean stuff off from that. The next book I read was the Book of the Month pick for August, Seduction Theory by Emily Adrian. So I was very, very surprised with this story in particular. It is a 4.5 out of 5 for me. It's very small. I almost read it in one day, ended up reading in a day and a half, but it was really quick and fast paced. And what I loved about this book is that it plays around with point of view and narration. And it's about a university student who falls in love with her creative writing teacher, who's a woman, who is married to another creative writing professor teacher in that university, who is thinking about having an affair with a coworker in that university. And the student, the creative writing student, who is the author stand-in, I don't fully, it plays around with how this is written because it's presented like this is her dissertation. She's using the crazy affair that is happening or the crazy relationships happening to use as her creative writing dissertation. And so it's almost as if Emily is this creative, the student, or the student is Emily, vice versa. And there are some really interesting interactions between the characters and how information is presented. At the beginning, for example, there is a description of the professor, the male professor, almost having a date with the coworker, and it's all presented in third person point of view. And then all of a sudden it dips very briefly into first person point of view. And I was like, oh, it's trying to do something really interesting. And yeah, my favorite section was when she keeps rewriting the same scene because she's not happy with it. And that was really fun because you could tell that she's trying to be true to what happened in real life, quote unquote real life, but also wanting it to be interesting for her to write and also interesting to read. And so I had a lot of fun with that. However, there are some moments that felt sort of lampshady and sort of self-indulgent. So at times, the dissertation talks about her presenting the dissertation to the members in the university or the other students, and because it's when you're trying to go for your PhD, there's like a meeting, right? I forget what it's called. And there are times where they talk about the stuff that we had just read a few chapters before, and it feels sort of lampshade. So like, oh, these characters, they sound sort of too good to be true, and what if they were not pretty? What happened then? Also, this has some amazing point of view, and this has some amazing prose, and blah 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 blah. And it sort of felt like it felt self-indulgent. It felt very interesting in how it presented itself. And I was like, I want to generate my own opinions without being told the opinion of a book about itself. Does that make sense? I could tell that the book was trying to tell me that it is good so that I can believe that it's good, but I think I could believe it's good by just reading it instead of it telling me that. So, but either way, I had a lot of fun with it, and that was the most important part for me. So it's a 4.5 out of 5 for me. The next book I read was Freakslaw by Jane Fleet. This is a young adult horror about a Scottish town that a circus arrives at, and stuff happens. The characters are very well written. It's a very eclectic cast of characters. There's even a cast list or a character list of everyone, almost everyone in the circus, or the important people in the circus. The Freakslaw is the circus, the performers' names, and the people in the town as well. It's just sort of what happens between the clashes of quote unquote normal people and queer people and people outcasts. And it was a really fun moment. There were some great small moments of horror, but I definitely wanted more of it. And it was a coming of age story, and I don't quite enjoy coming of age stories. I find them slightly uncomfortable for me. Not that they are bad, I don't find comfort in coming of age stories. Unfortunately, nothing really surprised me in this story. If everything moved how I expected it to move, and I wasn't very surprised with how things went. Everything was very well telegraphed to the audience, and I feel like there could have been some things that felt more imaginative, more new. I would say the majority of the plot points felt expected, and nothing really stood out to me as, oh, like this, I didn't expect this to happen, or I didn't expect that to happen. There were some parts that did, but it was like I knew that this specific plot point was going to happen because that plot point over there happened, and so I can connect the dots and stuff like that. And so throughout the story, I didn't feel worried about where things were going because I knew what was going to happen, and I was like, well, there we go. Oh, that made sense. Oh, see, because of and I feel like sometimes the stories are fine to do that, and it's not a bad thing that it telegraphs stuff like that. But I was definitely like, I'm not surprised. I know exactly what's going to happen, and I'm not bored, but definitely trying to finish it. And also, something with horror that I like is that there is a big catharsis moment at the end in most of the good horror movies and more horror media. And this book had a big catharsis moment, but it was seen in the point of view of someone who was not experiencing the catharsis moment. So I didn't feel that catharsis like I wanted it to feel. And so I felt like that specific moment was surprising because I was like, I'm missing out on the actual feelings that I should be feeling for this. And so I think it's a serviceable YA, but I just needed more. I wanted more. It probably needed a little bit more time to cook. The next book that I finished was The Mutation by K.A. Applegate. This is book 36 of the Animorphs series that I've been trying to go through. started early about a month ago, but because of my move and because of different things, I wasn't able to finish it, and I finally was able to finish it. It is a 3 out of 5. It's not amazing, unfortunately. The Animorphs are trying to stop the Yeerks from doing an experiment to make shock troopers that can go into water so that they can try to find the ship of some allies of the Animorphs, the Pamelites. The Pamelite ship is hidden underwater somewhere, and the Yeerks are trying to go underwater. The Yeerks make this ship to try to find the Pamelites' ship, and the Animorphs try to stop that and end up finding Atlantis. It's not Atlantis, but it is Atlantis, but it's not. And it's just a bunch of, I forgot what they're called. They're not that interesting, but their biology is. They were humans that got trapped underwater and began interbreeding and then also having radiation on them. And so they began gaining mutations and evolved into a different type of species that is almost just basically another alien species that the Animorphs have to deal with. The impetus of the mission, which was to stop the Yeerks from finding the Pamelite ship, got derailed into stopping these Atlanteans from taking over the world, and it didn't flow that naturally into that. And on top of that as well, the characters were not very well written. They felt very one note. As the series goes on, Applegate hires ghostwriters to write some of the books. Starting by like book 25, I believe, some of the books are ghost written. This is a ghost written book, and some of them have been pretty good. I've read a handful of them already. I'm on book 36, and I've already read at least 10 ghost written books. And this ghost written book definitely struggled in the character aspect. All of the characters felt one note. The point of view character, Jake, the leader, felt wishy-washy. He's supposed to be a lot more assured of himself. He's supposed to be a lot smarter too. And he was dumb as rocks in this book, and it was annoying. And their motivations shift around, and it was sort of haphazardly written. And it's one of my least favorite books of the series, which I love the Animorphs. Don't get me wrong. But this edition, book 36, the Mutation, it's a 3 out of 5. Could have been worse, though. Could have been better. We're almost there, y'all. The next book that I read was The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. So this book I had bought for a book club. And then 2 weeks later, I went into the bookstore to get a book. And they said, "Hey, did you see that we changed the book for the book club?" I was like, "No, what?" I still want to read the book, so I didn't want to return it. And then they rescheduled the book club to a time that I just cannot do anymore because my classes have started up again. And so I was like, well, whatever. I'm still going to read The Devils because I've heard a lot of good things about the book. And yeah, this was a pretty good book. There are some conflicting things that make this a 4 out of 5 for me. It has some of the most amazingly written characters I've ever read. This is the Suicide Squad meets the Catholic Church, I guess. It's also has some really interesting world building. It's set in an alternate history where Catholicism has changed slightly. I can't really point out because I don't really know much about Catholicism, but the grasp, reach, and extent of Catholicism has just expanded far further than what it actually is in actual history. Also, I think in this world, their Jesus was a woman, and so that also opens up a lot of avenues for women to be in the Catholic Church. But also, obviously, there's magic, sorcerers, zombies, elves, and stuff. And so, really great world building, really great historical, aesthetic, alternate history setting. And it was also very funny. There were some very funny moments in this book that I had a lot of fun with. However, The plot in and of itself was fine. It's about Brother Diaz, a monk who is conscripted to lead this suicide squad of the devils, which is made up of a immortal knight, sassy woman, vampire, necromancer, werewolf, and elf, to take a lost princess back to her kingdom. And that plot is a very standard plot in fantasy stories. It's just elevated by the characters and the setting that it's set in, but the plot itself felt very standard. As the story keeps going, it does hit very similar plot points to other fantasy stories, and for that, I didn't really feel connected to the story. The characters are well written. I didn't really care about what they were doing. The small individual scenes were very fun, but the whole, as it is, didn't really connect with it. I still wanted to read the story because I wanted to see how the characters grow and change, but I wasn't really interested in the story. I knew what was going to happen at the end, and that's not a bad thing. Same thing as Freakslaw. I did not feel surprised about anything, but it's fine because the characters definitely make up for it. I think the Devils and Freakslaw, I bought at the same time, really helped each other by having some amazing characters, but the plots were fine. And finally, the last book that I finished in the month of August was The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells, Volume 2. This book contains novellas 3 and 4 in the series, that being Rogue Protocol and Exit Strategy. Books 3 and 4 of this series were good, were fine. They're not as amazing as Book 2, which they're listed on the back of it. Book 2, Artificial Condition, is my favorite so far. All Systems Red was pretty good as well. The end of Exit Strategy was my favorite part of this book, and then Rogue Protocol is good. It had an interesting aesthetic. It's about Murderbot, a sec unit. In Rogue Protocol, it goes into an abandoned mining colony to get evidence on the company that almost killed it and the team it worked for. In All Systems Red, it wanted to find evidence for the corporation's wrongdoing. Grey Chris, they're called. In Exit Strategy, Murderbot wants to reunite with its found family and finds out that its owner, or its former owner, that's not its owner, it doesn't want to be its owner, it wants to be its friend, has been captured by Grey Chris, and so it is trying to save her. And I think that great novellas, the stories felt very well contained, and I was really happy with how things went. Again, not very surprised with how things are. Murderbot is definitely a very competent character, and it wasn't until Exit Strategy that things started to happen that I felt surprised at and excited at as to what was going to happen. But it definitely felt like these two were transitionary novellas into the novel Network Effect. I had bought it recently. Yeah, Network Effect, which is the 5th edition, which is 300 pages, the size of a normal novel. These are novellas. It definitely felt like a transition piece, and because of that, I felt like it was going through its motions. Also, I didn't quite enjoy how Rogue Protocol ended. It felt very rushed. And I was like, oh, okay, suddenly we're no longer doing this and we're doing that now. And that was an issue that has been an issue so far, is that some of these endings have felt very rushed. But at least Exit Strategy took its time, and I was very happy with that. But even though these two editions were slightly disappointing to me, it's still very well written. The sci-fi elements are still amazing. It still feels like magic. The things that Murderbot does in terms of hacking and connecting to other systems, it feels like magic, but it's just really advanced science fiction. I really like that about this series and about Murderbot. Murderbot is also an amazing character, and its connections to other humans, really, really fun, really funny as well. And yeah, that is all the books that I read in the month of August. It's a pretty good month. I feel like it's been ages since I read Babel, but literally it's been a long month because of how slow it's been at work. But I had a lot of fun with these books this month. The longest one that it took to read was The Devils. The Devils took me about a week to read, and I was struggling to read it because the text is really small. The prose is kind of dense. Very fun, but also I needed to get through it. Freakslaw also took a hot minute, and then a very interesting comparison between these two books, which took a hot minute, and then these three books that I read in one day each, and then Book of the Month. And also, I was very surprised that I was able to finish Murderbot Diaries in one day as well. I am currently reading The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Arundhati Roy, who is the author of my favorite book ever, the best written book I've ever read, The God of Small Things. The Ministry of Utmost Happiness is about a trans woman who goes on a train in India and meets an eclectic group of people, and we learn about their lives. And it's like 400 pages. I'm close to the 100-page mark, and that will be talked about in the September reading wrap-up review. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you got this far, let me know if you've read any of the books. What do you think about these books? The amount of books might go down as my work begins to pick up business, so we shall see. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Peppermint Pig and Gless, for being here with me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share with your friends. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to be passionate, and I'll see you later.